So let me just take this opportunity to welcome everybody to this For Our Elders live webinar, and it is live. We are having fun with Zoom this morning. So welcome everybody that's joined us. My name's Kristen, I'm from the National Landcare Network, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar. I would like to pay respects to elders, past and present, and acknowledge the country that we're all coming from today. On behalf of the National Landcare Network, we would also like to express our deep gratitude to all the elders across our community and our network that have shared time with us, shared knowledge with us, and have been guiding us the way forward. And I think it's really this NAIDOC week theme for our elders is so important. I will hand over to our facilitator, Nat Sommerville, who's going to lead the yarn for us today. And we're really grateful to have Nat and an amazing panel join us of elders from across the country and share with us a bit of a yarn. So I'm going to introduce Nat, and then Nat's going to take the yarn away. So Nat is president of the Australian Women in Agriculture and board director for National Farmers Federation. She's a member of the Yakamurundi Landcare Group, a farmer, grazier, mother, mentor, and a proud Torres Strait Islander woman from the Wagadam of the Mubiag Island in the Torres Strait. Nat is now working on Wiradjuri country in mid-north South Australia and has been there for 15 years with her husband and her 2 children. And she believes that when families are well supported and have access to good quality services, rural communities thrive. And it's so wonderful to have you with us today, Nat. Nat has been a land carer all her life and is driven by her passion for sustainable agriculture, the environment, and social justice. Thanks so much, Nat. I'm going to hand over to you now to take this yarn away.
Thank you, Kristen. And it's always, confronting when you hear your bio read like that. I was just saying before that I'm surrounded by great leaders on this panel today, and thank you very much for the invitation to facilitate this fantastic session. So we're here today talking about, the NAIDOC 2023 theme for our elders, which is such an important theme for all of us, whether you're First Nations or not. We all respect our elders and acknowledge the great work they have done for us moving forward. But today we're talking about it in the context of what it means to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across this country, and applying it to how that relates to our landcare community, our practices, and what it means, especially for our panelists today. So before I go on, I'd just like to also acknowledge the country that I'm coming from, so Wiradjuri country. So in my background, this is where I live and work. It's not my traditional country, but I just like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and right across Australia from where we're all meeting from today as well. This year's NAIDOC theme, like I said, is a significant one, and it's also a theme that is emotional for many of us because it means so much. The blurb that came with our NAIDOC, the NAIDOC theme is deep, and I'd really like to I suppose a call to action. Go away and read it. It's fantastic. I'm not going to read it today because I think we've got some fantastic people today that will delve a little bit deeper into it. But if you want to, after the session, go and have a look at the site and read it for yourself. I'd like to now introduce all of our panelists for today and thank them for being available to speak. So we might whip around the virtual room and introduce, if I could get each panelist to introduce themselves and also their connection to country and their connection to Landcare as well. So we might start with Uncle Wal, please.
Yeah, all right, why not? Yeah, well, my name's Wally Bell. I'm an Ngunnawal man. I've been raised on country. I was actually born down in Sydney, so don't hold that against me. But I was taught all about country as you know, more through the traditional way of doing things through my father. We at the time were living in a little place called Jerawa. Nobody knows where it is because it's just a little village. But it's there that Dad sort of gave me my grounding in being an Aboriginal person on country. So, you know, he taught me all those things about, you know, country itself, what it provides for us and what we could provide for the land as well in return. So, you know, I continue to do that in this day and age as well. You know, like I've spent a lot of time in employment, you know, 20 years with the Australian Public Service, 10 years with the Attorney General's Department, and then I moved over to, when it was first established, I guess, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Commission, another 10 years there. But I was also helping my father do cultural heritage management works at the same time as I was with ATSIC, and I found that cultural heritage management work was more rewarding than being a public servant. So I sort of moved away from the public service and did mostly, I guess, part-time cultural heritage works. But as it has now panned out, that seems to be my main role, is to look after culture and country at the moment. And then that in itself is quite beneficial in the fact that I'm making more of the non-Aboriginal sort of community aware of what we have out on country and what it means to us, and you know, the land itself, the value of the place. You know, I've helped a lot of rural landholders in understanding the place they're working on. You know, I've changed some of their attitudes to looking at things the way that we look at the land and better manage it, I guess. You know, because we've been managing the land now for, you know, thousands of years. So it's only natural then that we do have that knowledge that we can pass on. And then, as I was talking before about some of those land management practices, and one of those things I do is cool burn demonstrations. You know, so they're quite an important element these days when when you can see the impacts of the recent bushfires that we've had around the place. You know, and one of those clear demonstrations that the cool burning is a proper land management tool that we all should be using. When you look at a place called what was it called there? Not Tharwa, Tathra, where the local land council down there was doing, you know, managing the land through the cool burning methods, and the impacts of the bushfire when it struck there were minimised. You know, so there wasn't as much destruction done. So, you know, like the things that we do on country can be of benefit, not only to us as Aboriginal people, but the wider community as well. I sit on the board of Landcare ACT and numerous other boards and committees. I'm on the Natural Resource Management Advisory Group as well for the ACT government. I'm a member of the Darwa Ngunnawal Caring for Country Committee. And, you know, there's numerous other things that I know is part of the process. You can't avoid it, you know, it's like one of those necessary evils. So Um, hopefully my contribution to all those boards and committees and things like that is building up a better understanding of our connection with the land that we live on. So yeah, I might just leave it at that, I guess.
Thank you, Uncle Wal. And I must say, a highly respected elder across Australia, not just in your own backyard as well. And
Oh, really?
you've impacted a lot of people, so especially the Landcare Network. So yes,
That's good news. Yeah.
It is. Many people visit the Canberra area and are very, come in contact with you through your welcomes and cultural
Oh, that's right.
and it carries right across Australia. We all talk, and so just wanted to add that little bit in there. And
Thanks.
that's okay. And I'd like to introduce Auntie Val. If you would like to tell us a little bit about, introduce yourself, and tell us a little about your connection to the country and also to the Landcare community as well.
You're paying me back being second because I've just got on.
Good to hear you. Good to hear you.
Hello, everyone. Sorry about all those IT problems before. I could hear you all, but or see you all rather. Anyway, so as Nat said, I'm Valda Murray. I've lived and worked in Albury Wodonga for, I won't say how many years, but quite a few years. So I work on our traditional lands, which is Dodorowa, and I live in Wiradjuri country, so I pay respect to both those. My other descendants are from also from Wamba Wamba, Brappa Brappa, and Muthi Muthi, so down around Balranald. And I guess growing up, at the time you don't sort of know because you take that everything, this is normal, living on the riverbank, growing up, doing all your chores, being part of, the rest of the siblings, and going out, doing rabbit trapping and all that sort of stuff, picking whenever we had to. So to us, that was a normal part of life, and we didn't really know much about all this land care stuff, but I guess from the beginning, we were doing it without knowing it. So I guess that's been, now that I look back on it, it's, you take it as a value thing because you can then pass on what you've seen and what you did earlier on in your life. And then you take that forward, as Wal said, that you work with all these other different groups. And I've been able to, and I've only been in this land care role for about 6 months. So it's been great to work alongside all those different land care groups, networking and building a rapport with them. And but it's about working together and sharing knowledge. So how we can improve things, for the land, because we have to, as I said, work together to make it better for our kids, our grandkids, etc. So I'm going to a school after this to, talk about a planting project. So there's always something, and someone's phoning to make an appointment. And so we go out, we do the cool burns. We're always being called upon to go and do different things. So yeah, well, I won't talk too long because that's probably me for now.
Thank you, Auntie Val. And you're talking, I can hear the work that you do, and the responsibility that you're carrying. And sometimes, you know, it feels it's a cultural responsibility that you have to do it. And in order to move better forward for the better, I suppose. And yeah, I just want to say that yeah, I hear you, and I'm sure a lot of other people are, especially during NAIDOC week, when it's kind of like our Black Christmas, isn't it? It's like, yeah, time to celebrate, and it's amazing all these other events that are happening at the same time that have nothing to do with NAIDOC, and it's like, hang on, just give us a break. It's not like you know, put on a conference in the middle of Christmas.
Yeah.
And so it's navigating that space, isn't it? It's really yeah, trying to spread your love, and sometimes it's quite thin, and other times you have to sit and nurture and, you know, get that energy back again. But
Yeah.
I love how, when you were talking about connecting with schools, that, you know, that strength in your voice when you were talking about that. And yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you.
That's okay. So we might move over to John Chester. John, would you be able to unmute and maybe introduce yourself as well? I'm sure many people across the Landcare Network know you quite well. But if you could introduce yourself, and maybe mention your connection to Landcare and connection to country as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Natalie. Yeah, I'm a cook of the man from over on the west coast of South Australia, but my mother comes from that area, my grandfather. My father's a Nurrunjeri, and so there's a mixture of Nurrunjeri and Narunga when those communities closely linked together. My involvement with Landcare started as a rangelands officer for the Aboriginal Lands Trust, and I sort of liaised with communities and found that a lot of the problems they were having was lack of connection with relevant agencies, NRM boards and government agencies, and I did an assessment over the properties, and a lot of the communities, our dogs are going crazy. A lot of the communities were in the same boat. So let's have a look. So there was a lot of problems. Native vegetation, soil erosion, noxious weeds, and feral animals, and it looked when we looked at the guidelines of other organisations, they didn't include Aboriginal communities. So from there, I was I'd been involved in over that period of time with the Aboriginal Lands Trust. I became the first Indigenous land management facilitator in South Australia and Australia actually, and I was asked to go over to Canberra to select with Kevin McLeod and Dennis Rose and all the other in Australian Nature Conservation Agency, and select all the other Indigenous land management facilitators right across Australia. And that lasted from 97 to 2003, Indigenous land management facilitator. I was asked the work led to further IPA declarations across South Australia. That was the first Indigenous protected area, was the Nepabunna community, and that's been going for 25 years, and we'll be celebrating that in August. Over that period of time, I was asked to represent the Indigenous Protected Areas program with Senator Robert Hill over in the United Nations and the Convention for Sustainable Development, and I presented a paper to that forum, and also I was invited to go to the convention for parks in Durban, South Africa, and present another paper there with Environment Australia. I was heavily involved in the Aboriginal Lands Regional Assessment and Technical Panels, which was through the Natural Heritage Trust, ensuring Aboriginal interests are represented in NRM, and contributed to shaping future NRM delivery across Aboriginal land care in South Australia. And, also, we found that we didn't meet anybody's guidelines. So what we did in South Australia, we developed a strategy for Aboriginal managed lands in South Australia, and that was successful involvement in the development and implementation, including Indigenous Land Corporation and primary industries and resources.
Don, can I interject just for a second? I just wanted to pull back your connection to South Australia Landcare, and wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the history, especially of the Landcare South Australia Association, because you've been involved with that since the start. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So Landcare was primarily through the National Landcare program, but South Australian Landcare, that was the prime mover for getting a lot of programs throughout South Australia, a lot of programs on communities, and also through the Natural Heritage Trust being involved with accessing funding from the Canberra side of it through Natural Heritage Trust 1. But later on, Landcare sort of got dismantled in South Australia, and communities were struggling. They were left up to the NRM boards to provide services to and funding to communities, but it just went backwards further. So I guess Jerry Butler and myself was at a conference in Canberra, and we didn't get a mention. So what we did, even though we had been doing good things, we reinvigorated both Jerry Butler and myself through the Aboriginal Lands Trust, reinvigorated Landcare, and so we had a lot of following, and that's where we found out that that was happening all across Australia. So what we did is we invited a lot of concerned land carers in other states, and we had a meeting in Adelaide, and we decided that enough's enough. Was sick of seeing these NRM boards getting all the money and it wasn't going anywhere. So what we did is we developed the National Landcare Network. National Landcare Network as a voice for all concerned land carers over the state, over the country. And also we was bold enough to put the black hand on one side of that logo, and that showed that there was unification there about concerns about that money going into NRM boards instead of going to into community. So that was a little bit of a winner there. So but the NLN's been going now for a fair while, and it's gotten stronger. So.
And the logo you're talking about is the one you can see on Jessica Dixon's screen at the moment. If you look at that, so that's the two hands coming together, the black and the white. That's the one you're referring to.
Can't see it now, but but anyway, that was it. And so they're the voice for us. It's up in the National Landcare Network. So they're the voice for us to go to when we want to lobby government, and that might happen in the ACT as well. Uncle Wal there, you've got a voice in Canberra, and she's Minister for Aboriginal Affairs. So I'd be going to Linda Burney and putting your case across, because that's not right. What you can't. Boundaries. We don't recognise state boundaries. When you look at a lot of our communities over here, you've got probably Unagal, Pitjantjatjara, Yunkalanjara are in 3 states. And so what, they have to go to 3 governments? No, go to one minister and sort it out that way. So I hope that provided you with some good advice, but they've got a lot of, she'd got a lot of pull there, and you might be able to do what you want to do on your own country. So yeah.
Thank you, John. I think that's good advice, and I reckon maybe that's been a good way forward. I think promoting, I suppose, what will work moving forward as a collective. And I heard a lot of work that you've done in your introduction, and the commitment you have to land care and to community as well. And I know being in South Australia for the 20 odd years that I've been here, that is a lot of work, and I'm very happy to hear that the IPA at Nantawarrina is celebrating its 25th birthday as well later on this year, and that's a massive achievement itself. So I might move to our next panelist, which is I think we might go to Auntie Karen, if we can. Auntie Karen, are you there? Are you able to unmute and maybe just introduce yourself? And again, explain your connection to Country or Mob and connection to Landcare as well, please.
So Wally's my older brother. So a lot of what Wally does is what I do. So I'm a member of the ACT Landcare on the NRM as well. Dara Caring for Country, and I grew up in Yass, and I think that's about me. I do advocate for where it's not talked about a lot is a lot of the women's sites where so that's what I kind of do. So short and sweet, that's me.
And I think there's more to you for sure, and the really critical work that you do, especially with the women's group, which is for those people who don't understand the difference in a cultural way between women's business and men's business. It's absolutely critical that people like you, Auntie Karen, is there guiding that work and acknowledging the difference between the two. So you're also connected to the Landcare ACT as well, is that right? Oh, you're a mentor. You mentor the ACT Landcare community in your bio.
Yeah.
And which is really, really important work, especially when the majority of our Landcare community is made up of people who may not have the knowledge or the connection from a Aboriginal point of view. Sharing that information and that mentorship is such a critical role that we all play, and especially you, Karen. And I know firsthand from the Landcare community in ACT that your work has been critical as well. So welcome to the panel, and it'll be great to hear from you later on as well, as we move further into the discussion. I might head over to you now, Craig, if I may. Would you introduce yourself, please, and as previously discuss your connection and also your Landcare involvement.
Thanks, Nat. I'm Craig, obviously, Craig Little, from Githable country. That's up near the Queensland-New South Wales border, around that area. So I currently work for Landcare New South Wales as the Aboriginal Engagement Manager. So we've been doing a lot of stuff in the background and getting it prepared. I'm actually finishing off the last program, and we're starting a new one. As some of you may know, New South Wales got 59 million to continue all their work, and plus the Aboriginal Engagement Program as well, which is working together. I've been a Githable Ranger for 8 years in my previous job. I've worked with the Clarence Valley Council as the Aboriginal Project Officer and many other jobs before. I've been regenning for 30 years and I've practiced original burning techniques every winter at the moment. So, as I said, I'm just finishing up the program. We've got some really exciting stuff that Landcare New South wants to roll out across New South Wales in the next program. And that includes Landcare really opening the door for our people to come in and actually be a part of that Landcare process. So I can talk a little bit about that later on. And with that new program, we want to introduce 11 Aboriginal engagement officers across the state for those 11 regions, and they'll be based in their own region. So I think Landcare's at an exciting time where they actually want Aboriginal people to come in and be part of it. And I think it's an exciting time for Landcare and our people because we can actually combine all that knowledge now and actually starting to work together. And when we have our people out on the ground with Landcare groups, that's when the true reconciliation will start, because our people will be on their country, will be on country with Landcare groups, planting trees or whatever those projects are, will be shoulder to shoulder. There'll be no government there. It'll just be people on the land looking after country is where our people belong as well. So it's really exciting time. So I'll leave that there for the moment, and we'll talk about that a bit later.
Thanks, Craig. And I was so excited to hear you'd come on board and as the, let me get that right, New South Wales Landcare Program Aboriginal Engagement Manager. I was so excited to hear that, and I thought fantastic. And Landcare New South Wales does such an amazing load of work and continue to do so. So it's just so inspiring to see that work being done and that true connection, I think, that really authentic partnering together and walking forward. Yeah,
Landcare New South Wales has a great team there now, so I believe they're going to be able to deliver a really good program for everybody.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, we've talked a little bit already about, the connection to Landcare that we all have, the Landcare movement, I would say. And I'd like to also mention, or reiterate that, mob has been caring for country for many, many thousands of years. And it's not I suppose for many of us, we've learnt those methods from our previous knowledge holders. For some of us, it's been a challenge to gain that knowledge due to, our recent history and sometimes that disconnection as well. So as we reflect on a theme of for our elders, which is the NAIDOC theme, I'd like to ask each one of you what, and this is, I'm throwing you on the spot here because we didn't discuss this, but I'd like, I suppose, you to tell me who's an important elder in your lives, past or present, and maybe share a little bit about that relationship and that journey as well. If you're able to. On the spot, definitely. But this is what makes a good webinar sometimes. Maybe if I start with you, Uncle Wal, if that's okay, are you able to speak to that?
Yeah, most certainly. My biggest inspiration from an elder would be my parents. Now, growing up in the times that I grew up in, in a place called Yass, and it hasn't changed too much, I don't think. I mean, I haven't lived there for a fair while now, but it was quite not a real good place to grow up in as an Aboriginal person. We went through all the same sort of discriminations that other Aboriginal people went through. Like we couldn't live in the towns and we lived on missions and all those sort of things. But my father was really a pioneer, I guess, in that he did things outside the norm. Like becoming a justice of the peace. There wasn't too many Aboriginal people around in those days that were justices of the peace. He became the first Aboriginal person to actually be admitted to the RSL club in Yass as well. My mother, she was the unofficial Aboriginal liaison person in Yass, looking after all the young people that were getting in trouble with the with the police and things like that. They saw things differently to the way a lot of people did. They weren't really reactionary. They were working with everybody to come to outcomes that were suitable for everybody, not just us as Aboriginal people, but also that the non-Aboriginal community could understand and work with as well. In the ACT, my mum and dad, they actually set up a good working relationship with the Australian Federal Police, so much so that the then Commissioner Mick Kelty, when my father passed away, actually had at my dad's funeral, they did a police parade up the main street of Yass, which is something that's never been done before. So that was just out of respect for who my father was. So it's my mum and dad that have inspired me, I guess, to keep going and doing the things that my mum and dad were doing. My mum can't do those things at the moment because she's in aged care with dementia. So, but she's still an inspiration to me. There's other Aboriginal elder people around as well, but they basically didn't do things in the same vein as my mum and dad did. And so, that's who really, put me in the place that I am today. My mum and dad, as elders of the community, and the rest of the Ngunnawal community actually also respected mum and dad too. So, yeah, easy.
Thank you. Thanks, Uncle Walt. You're able to speak straight from the heart on the spot. So well done. You know, I suppose you've been reflecting on this theme your whole life, really, isn't it? Our elders are so important to us.
Yep.
And you know, I think it was mentioned before now by one of the other panelists about, you know, the values that you carry on because of them as well. So thank you for sharing that. I might head over to Auntie Val if I can. Auntie Val, tell us about someone who's important to you through your life, and yeah, share a little bit about, you know, that person. Well, you have to unmute yourself. There we go.
Yeah, too many buttons there. Again, again, it's a no-brainer that naturally it is your parents as you're growing up. So they instill all those values and so forth in you. So it's and then hopefully then we are able to do that with our own kids, our grandkids, just passing on that knowledge and, you know, all those strengths that we were taught, that you've got to go out to work, you've got to go and do this, and treat people as you want to be treated. To get respect, you got to earn respect, all those sort of things. So, and trusting people. So, but to me, it always comes back to getting to know that person. So, and getting to trust them. Like, as we know, going back, there wasn't a lot of trust in the police or, you know, anything that had an official title, like government. But over the years, we've come a long way. We've learned to walk, and like that photo, you know, we're all standing side by side and working together for the betterment of our communities. So I guess it's us as leaders, we need to then work with them to say, well, we want better for our kids and grandkids. So if we're not, you know, working in with them, nothing will change or nothing can change. So stop running down and living in the past. It's here now and moving forward. So I guess it's up to us now to be that voice, because we have to continue what work has already been done. Yeah, that's about it for me, I suppose. And I've got a 90-year-old uncle that still, you know, lives alone, does all his own stuff. So to me, he's also my strength. I love to go and visit him, sit around having a yarn. So he keeps us going as well.
Thank you, Auntie Val. Yeah, I think the values from parents, or, you know, the important people who brought us up in life, certainly what I'm hearing when I hear you speak just now, and moving that forward, and you know, I suppose doing work for the future. We're here. Let's do it. Let's move forward. So yeah, everyone's got a different perspective, don't they, in terms of moving forward. And yeah, thank you for sharing that story with us. I might go over to actually Craig next, just to mix it up a bit. Over to you, Craig.
Thanks, Nat. It's like Wal and Val said, you know, it sort of starts at home. They're your first contacted people, mostly my mum, but for me, it's probably a handful of elders as well. And they've all been really good. They've instilled a lot of values in me because they're out there doing all the right things. You know, to me, an elder is someone that does the right things and tries to participate in the community and help the community. They're the ones that give all the time. And, you know, for anybody to get native title, it's all got to come from those elders. So there's all that wisdom, there's all that knowledge that's been passed down. And when I grew up, you're always taught to respect your elders. You didn't really understand when you were young, but I understand why now, because they're a lot older and they have a lot more knowledge and a lot more memories of stuff, and they've done a lot more things. So for me, it's a handful of people that have been around in my life that's, you know, instilled all different values in me, showing me how to do things the right way, showing me how to think. And I think when you look back to long time ago, 1,000 years ago, those fellas that grew up, they all taught each other. They went through ceremony and stuff, you know, fear and stuff was taken out of them, greed was taken out of them, all those things. And some of those things have sort of shone through in some of the elders that I've been around. So I feel like I'm pretty lucky to have had those handful of elders that I can see. And I think we really need those elders around today for these younger kids as well, so that they can see the right way to do things, because things have changed since I was a kid. So, and they're not quite the same. I spent most of my life on the riverbank. So, yeah, it's a handful for me of elders.
Absolutely, Craig. And that comment about it's not, these days are not like they used to be, and the kids are challenged by different things.
Yep.
Maybe how we were brought up as kids as well, you know, social media and different types of drugs and alcohol issues that is just a lot different. And having to navigate that space as well. That connection to elders, I think, is so critically important. And if we can have as many elders connected to our young ones as possible, to help support and mentor, I think personally that you know, the first step we can do, just to show that, you know, some of these kids are, you know, are supported and loved outside of, you know, the family home. So a lot of kids I know are missing out on that opportunity just purely because of the way that we live out in our society today. So thank you for sharing that, Craig. And I might hand over to John now. John, if you could unmute and tell us a little bit about, you know, an elder or a number of elders that have influenced you in your life, and a little bit about them. That would be great. Thanks, John.
Okay. Yeah, look, we was, as an Aboriginal family, we was put in an area where there was a lot of racism, and the same with other Aboriginal communities. So I've got a lot of strength out of some of the elders then at that time, because they used to share. Our family would go to another family and stay when, you know, when my mother and father would doing working. Particularly my father, he was working a lot of hours, and my mother had other kids from other families there. I still remember Auntie Josie Aegis. You know, remember Auntie Josie Aegis and Auntie Rona Smith, and certainly some family members from Point Pearce. We got shared out at Point Pearce. Used to stay there, and got a lot of strength out of a lot of uncles there. In later days. Particularly some of the elders, Uncle George Tongery, you know, remember him, Uncle George Tongery, Auntie Maud, and also when I moved out back to Port Lincoln, my grandfather, he looked after us as well. So we just got shared out amongst a lot of family, and I got a lot of strength out of that seeing how they work and how they deal with issues, the same issues. And but yeah, I guess it was hard for us down at in the Port Adelaide area there, and sometimes it wasn't even safe to walk down the street. So, but anyway, that's I got a lot of strength out of that, and that gave me a lot of courage to do what I'm doing now. So, dark days. Thank you.
Thanks, John. And sometimes it's reflecting on those past memories. It's not easy to do, and thank you for sharing as well, because we can hear the emotion in your voice, and also you've mentioned the strength it's brought you as well, and built your character moving forward. So you're certainly a respected person in our South Australian community, not just in our Aboriginal community, but in all of our communities as well. So thanks, John, very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's okay. So Arnie and Karen, if you could unmute and share a little bit about, your connection to elders, and maybe highlight some important elders that have helped you in your life as well, as you moved in your journey forward.
Yeah, I think it's a lot like everyone's saying, and especially Wally. My parents, and especially my mum. I think that's sort of I don't know, where I kind of the protection of women's sites and stuff like that. There was a story that someone told me not so long ago, where it's actually where they want to build the new lodge. And years ago, my mum actually went and protested, and I was like, I just couldn't believe that she actually went and protested, so that wouldn't be built there. And and even today, that same place is where a women's area is, and we had that, helped have that all cleaned up and all that sort of stuff. So it's really my mum. And also I was going to say Wally, because I wouldn't be here today because I'm just like a really shy sort of person, and I think Wally has actually really given me the confidence to be able to even sitting here and talking, and a lot of other different things that we do on country. And so.
Thank you, Karen. And Uncle Wally looked a little surprised when you said that. But yeah, it is so critically important to have those elders helping us and mentoring us moving forward, as you've shown a fantastic example there. Sometimes it's really hard to talk about those situations where, for the sake of progress, has caused destruction on our cultural areas, and that'll always sit with us in an uncomfortable way. And the way that you handle that, and then how that impacts your path and journey forward, and how sometimes it gives us strength to keep fighting and keep advocating for those other important areas. But you're a great role model as well. So by sharing that story, other people listening to this conversation will go, actually, maybe I do have that strength in me to continue and keep moving forward. So thank you, Karen, for sharing that as well. So we are almost at the end of our webinar, but before we do a wraparound, I just want to go back to Craig, because I think I've got a question for you, Craig. And you've mentioned that Landcare has been supported by some really critical funding in order to do some fantastic work moving forward and continue to build the momentum of Landcare moving forward. Can you just tell me, what does Landcare have in store for Aboriginal people moving forward?
So I keep forgetting to unmute. As I said before, Landcare's planning to roll out 11 Aboriginal engagement officers across the New South Wales state because they have 11 regions. We're going to start with 2 next year to make sure that they're happy and we get all the bugs ironed out or any sort of issues. And they'll go to all those 11 regions eventually. I assume it might take up to a couple of years. I've also set up a couple of steering committees. So we have a steering committee in Richmond Landcare, which is up near Ballina. So the steering committee is a project steering committee that the Landcare groups got going with 2 Aboriginal men on that, and they're participating in a project of the mistletoe and a riparian restoration project in that area around the Sommerville area. So the idea of that steering committee is we open the door to invite local Aboriginal people in from that area into Landcare. They sit down and the Landcare tells them about their project they want to do, which allows Aboriginal people to have the opportunity to have input or give advice on those projects. So that's working really well. And Richmond Landcare is putting together a video because one of those guys had done the walk through on private properties on those project areas where he's been looking for artifacts showing you how axes were made, just looking at different stones and talking about that and talking about the area in general from an Aboriginal point of view from someone that belongs in that area. So that steering committee is working really well, and we'd like to see that rolled out right across the state to give all our people in their own country a chance to participate in those Landcare projects and to offer advice and ideas on those projects. So, for example, you might be doing a planting along the riverbank and you might have an auntie there that says, well, that's a women's place. So that gives Landcare the opportunity to say, well, all right, we'll just have women plant those trees in that area and everyone else can plant that further down the riverbank. So that's what we're really hoping to roll out as well. And with that, we want to introduce the RAPs across Landcare regions as well, out through every Landcare group. So the Reconciliation Action Plan. And within that, they can't write it by themselves. So you have to have 2 people write it. You have to have Aboriginal people and the Landcare people. So that gives Landcare people access to our people once again, where they can start learning about protocols and start learning about country and all those general things that they will learn along the way. So that's really opening up the door. So, and when I'm speaking to both groups, I really encourage both groups to participate in that because it's a chance for both groups to really start working together and learning together. And like I said, once you're out in the field, on country, where our people belong, that's when we can really start to walk in true reconciliation, because we're going to start to form those relationships. We're going to start to understand each other. And some of the cultural burning that I've done, we've gone to private properties and walked through them when I was a ranger, and they've sent cards back to our depot thanking us for it. And that's when I realised it's our people that have to lead reconciliation. It's our people that have to take those people by the hand and walk across country and talk about country and tell them about country. And that's when things start to happen that you don't realise. And that's when the real reconciliation starts. So I think Landcare is in a fantastic position, and I thank them for opening that door. And it's up to Landcare groups to take that on, and it's up to our people to take that on. You know, and as I've said to our people and Landcare groups, I said, we are all in the same boat. When the fires and floods comes, we're all in the same boat. Nobody's going anywhere. So it's really the job of our people to teach them how to look after country now, because it's time. Like when those fires come, there's a lot of built up fuel because the maintenance from our people had stopped. So now we've got all this build up of fuel. It's time we started that burning again. It's time we started working together and teaching everyone how to look after country, because that's the only way we're going to move forward. And once we teach everyone about country, that's when the real reconciliation will start.
That's
Sorry, Nat.
fantastic, Craig. We might leave it there.
Yep, that's okay. Great.
And finish on that note, because I think, you know, that really sums up our discussion today. That's where the true reconciliation journey starts.
Yes.
And walk together and share moving forward for the better. So I just want to thank you all for participating in this webinar today. Craig, John, Uncle Wal, Auntie Karen and Auntie Val, really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here and share really honestly and authentically your stories with us today. And just also want to thank the NLN as well for hosting this webinar too. So if we give you all a big round of applause, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
And we'll let you get on with your days. And as I say in my language, lakane, which means see you later and go well. Thank you.
Thank you.